From Columbus, the center of Ohio, this is music from the heartland with songs at the center. This episode features Grammy Award winners Larry Cordle, Carl Jackson, and Jerry Salley. Major funding provided by The Ohio State University, James Cancer Hospital, and Solov Research Institute. No two people are exactly alike, and neither are their cancers. At the James, we believe there is no routine cancer. Learn more at cancer.osu.edu/cancer. Additional funding provided by the Academy of Country Music Lifting Lives Program, the Ohio Arts Council, and France & Associates.
Welcome to Songs at the Center. I'm Eric Gnezda, and I'm pleased that you joined us. We're coming to you from the Cardinal Theater at the Thomas Worthington High School in Worthington, Ohio. We're thrilled with the lineup we have for this episode. Three of the greatest songwriters in Nashville. Together, they're known as the trio, but individually, they're successful in their own right. Would like to introduce, originally from Chillicothe, Ohio, Jerry Salley. Thank you. From Eastern Kentucky, Larry Cordle. And the man, the myth, and the legend, originally from Mississippi, Mr. Carl Jackson. Well, Carl Jackson, your music and your appearances have been all over the world, but Columbus, Ohio actually plays an important part in your past. And it's just one of those weird coincidences. You had started a band here with, among others, the late Keith Whitley, whose voice is legendary. But while you were here, you said something like the band lasted a week or whatever. But right. While you were here, something miraculous happened, very serendipitous. Glenn Campbell happened to be here at the Ohio State Fair, and at that point you were young, you didn't know Glenn, and take it from there. What happened?
It was 1972, and I was here we had formed a group, Keith Whitley, Jimmy Goodrow, Bill Rollins, and myself had formed a group called The Country Store. And Keith and I noticed in the paper that Glenn Campbell was going to be at the Ohio State Fair. And so we had to see him. Keith was a huge fan of Glenn also, and Glenn was a hero to me. I mean, I did not miss the Good Time Hour. I had to see that show. And so we went out to the show and enjoyed it so much. Glenn was fabulous, as always. And on our way back to the car that evening, after we'd seen the show, I glanced over to the left, and there was a fella standing there by the name of Larry McNeely. And Larry played banjo for Glenn. And, of course, I was very familiar with him and with his playing. So I walked over to him, and I just stuck out my hand, and I said, I'm Carl Jackson. I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed the show and enjoyed your playing. And he said, Carl Jackson, man, what are you doing here? He said, I know you. He said, I love your playing. I said, well, I'm here with Keith Whitley, and we formed a little group. Told him the whole story. And he said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, well, nothing. Just hanging out. He said, well, why don't you come by and let's do some picking together? And I said, okay, we can do that. So I went by the next day, and Larry, he sat there, and we got our banjos out, and we're trading a few licks back and forth, and he keeps asking me to play things, can you play this? And he'd either play something and then have me repeat it, or he would ask me to play a certain song, like, Foggy Mountain Breakdown, Rocky Top, whatever, kind of standards, and then he got into some more difficult stuff, like Little Rock Getaway and things like that, and I said, yeah, and I'd either play a little bit for him or whatever. And he looked over and he said, can you play guitar? And I said, yeah, I'll play guitar. Next thing I know is Larry is asking me if I want the job. And I said, well, sure. What's going on? He said, I don't want to travel anymore. He said, I'm tired of traveling, and I would like to find somebody to take my place, and you can do it. And I said, well, okay. And we go over to the next trailer that was the dressing rooms at the Ohio State Fair. And there sits Glenn Campbell, my hero, and I walk in, and from the very minute I walked in, the man treated me like family. He put me through the same hoops, it was like, well, so you play banjo? Yeah. Well, can you play this? Can you play that? And he asked me if I could play Little Rock Getaway, and I played it for him. And then he asked me if I could play guitar, and I said, yeah. And at the time, I mean, I had learned everything that Glenn had ever done because I just loved him, you know. And so, and I remember the last thing not the last thing he asked me. He asked me 2 more questions. First one was, he said, can you play the Claw, which was a Jerry Reed tune? And yeah, Jerry Reed was another hero. And I could play that. I told him, yeah. He said, play it for me. I played it for him. Next question he asked me, how much you want to make? I swear. That's an absolute quote. And I said, and in my 18-year-old wisdom, I said, $1 million. And he said, well, you go home and get your stuff together. I'm going to have my business manager, Stan Snyder. I'm going to have him call you in a few days and get a passport. We're going to Australia.
Wow.
You know, and so I joined up with the group and stayed with him for 12 absolutely wonderful years, 12 of the best years of my life.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that story, and we'd love to hear you share a song.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know how many of you know, but Mark Twain was born with Halley's Comet in 1835, and he, as he got older in life, he decided that he wanted to go out of the world with Halley's Comet, you know, and he made a serious mistake by telling God that's what he wanted, because when Halley's Comet came back 75 years later, Mark Twain died that night with Halley's Comet in the sky. So don't ever do that unless you mean it, you know. But this song, I wrote about it. Wrote about that event, and Ricky Skaggs performed it on the Mark. He's imitating Ricky Skaggs over here. On the Mark Twain Words and Music project, and try to do it for you. It's called Comet Ride. 1, 2, 3. Well, the good Lord said November 30 back in 1835, let the whole world know young Samuel Clemens by the way he will arrive. When the doctor spanks that little bottom and his newborn baby cries, let a light shine bright up here in heaven, leave a trail across the sky. Gonna take a ride on Halley's Comet for the whole wide world to see. Gonna fill the sky, they'll see him coming for a place in history. Drop him off in old Missouri. Well, the muddy Mississippi was his Harvard and his Yale, and it forever put a stamp upon the way he'd spin a tale. It brought us the adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, who taught us the fires of hell are better than betraying your best friend. Well, he took a ride on Halley's Comet for the whole wide world to see. A light filled the sky, they saw him coming for a place in history. Dropped him off in old Missouri. 3/4 of a century passed and the year's 1910. Twain lifts a prayer, let me go out just the way that I came in. God smiled down, said, dear Mark, I agree the time is right. I can't bear to see you disappointed, pick you up on Thursday night. Gonna take a ride on Halley's Comet for the whole wide world to see. Gonna fill the sky, they'll see him going for a place in history. Gonna take a ride on Halley's Comet for the whole wide world to see. Gonna fill the sky, they'll see him going for a place in history. For all eternity.
Carl Jackson, thank you. We're honored.
Thank you.
We're honored.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's what what I strive to do as a songwriter. We strive to do that, to write that song that it may be specifically about you, but when the listener hears it, it's about them. You know what I mean? They put themselves in the song, and I've had that happen many times. People will come up and they'll go, "Man, you wrote that song about me." I'm like, "No, I wrote it about me, but I'm glad, because that was the goal. You want to write something that touches people, touches their heart, you know."
Jerry, Salley, thanks for joining us on Songs at the Center. You've been nominated for 6 Dove Awards and actually won one with Stephen Curtis Chapman. And you write a lot of different types of music. You have a song in particular that's about being broken.
Yes.
And
yeah, I've been blessed with so many things in my life. This is one of my favorite things I've ever written. Stephen Curtis and we started out at the Opryland years ago, and one of the songs we wrote that I was honored with is a song called "His Strength is Perfect," actually, that was put in the Baptist hymnal in 2009. And I'm not going to do it for you today. I just wanted you to know that I wrote it. But you know, I've written a lot of bluegrass, country, gospel, 450 different songs, different artists. But the songs that mean the most to me are the gospel songs. They really are. And this particular day, I was with a couple of buddies of mine, and they had this idea for a song. And we needed a girl's name for the song. And I don't know how many of you have kids out there. Very many of you? Yeah, well, I got 3 girls and a boy, and the girls are why I've got all this gray hair, you see. And I thought about my baby girl, Maggie, when we were writing the song, and I said, "Boys, I think we need to name the girl in the song Maggie." Unlike her 2 older sisters, who every time a toy would break, they would come crying to Daddy that their toy broke, they needed a new one. Anytime one of Maggie's toys broke, she asked me to fix it. And so we wrote this song. It was written as a country song, actually. Ended up being a #1 gospel song for us. A group called the Tallies recorded it, and then several people have recorded it since then. It goes like this right here. Maggie came home one day with a raggedy Ann. Said, "Mama, looky here what I found in the neighbor's garbage can." It had a missing left arm and a right button eye hanging by a thread. She carried it gently up to her room and laid it on her bed. With her other dolls, she loves the broken ones, the ones that need a little patching up. She looks for diamonds in the rough and makes them shine like new. It really doesn't take that much, a willing heart and a tender touch. If everybody loved like she does, there'd be a lot less broken ones. 20 years later in a shelter on 18th Avenue, a 17-year-old girl turns up all black and blue, with needle tracks in her left arm, almost too weak to stand. She says, "I'm lost and I need help," as Maggie takes her hand and says, "Come on in." She loves the broken ones, the ones that need a little patching up. She looks for diamonds in the rough and makes them shine like new. It really doesn't take that much, a willing heart and a tender touch. If everybody loved like she does, there'd be a lot less broken ones. If you call her an angel, she'll be quick to say to you, she's just doing what the one who died for her would do. Love the broken ones, the ones that need a little patching up. Look for diamonds in the rough and make them shine like new. It really doesn't take that much, a willing heart and a tender touch. If everybody loved like he does, there'd be a lot less broken ones. If everybody loved like she does, there'd be a lot less broken ones. Maggie came home one day with a raggedy, raggedy Ann.
Thank you.
The common thread for me is the ability to try to tell a story. If it's a gospel song, obviously I try to relate it to Jesus or to a biblical passage of some kind. And if it's a bluegrass number, I try to just tell the story of country. Now, country music's changed a lot since I started in the business. I try really hard to make people to feel something, and whether it's bluegrass, country, or gospel. My goal every time, although I don't always achieve it, my goal is to stir an emotion and make somebody feel something.
Well, Larry Cordle, or as people call you, the Mighty Cord, you've been in Nashville since the early 80s and have just done a plethora of things. You're known for a lot of things, but one of them is the song Murder on Music Row, which you wrote some 20 years ago, really about the loss or the change of direction of country music. And what's your take on that now?
It's great. It's because it's more appropriate now than it was when it was written. So it's had great long legs for me. I've really.
Well, there was some controversy though when the song came out.
Well, there wasn't between us. I mean, we didn't have any. We didn't have any at all. You know, I don't. I recall it. I mean, we had our 15 minutes for sure because it's hard to get in People magazine and I mean, you can't buy that stuff. It just has to happen, you know, it did, you know. And then the whole CMA thing, being out with camera crews on Music Row saying we're big supporters of country music and stuff. We kind of laughed. We just laughed about all of it, really. We thought, wow, can you believe all this is going on over?
Well, that's an interesting song because was it one, the writing process, was it one that kind of stewed in your head for a while, or did it just come up by accident, or how do you remember the genesis of that song?
No, it was something I guess we had talked about a long time, about the disappearance of traditional country music from the radio. You know, that started in the 90s. Actually, to be honest with you, it started a long time even before that because they started trying to modernize the way country music sounded. I'm talking about the real raw, unadulterated Hank Williams and Lefty Frizzell and that kind of stuff, you know. A lot of those guys recorded live and they just, you know, you kind of had to like that raw bones thing, and it just was disappearing for sure from the format. So as far as talking about it, we'd been talking about it a long time because there wasn't a lot of country music when I moved to town. But, you know, then we had that resurgence after Ricky. Skaggs came there, you know. After him we had Randy Travis. They started playing Merle and George a little bit more, and they Vern Gosden and so forth. And we had a little resurgence there for a while, but it didn't take them long to get off that train. You know, they George Strait and Allen were kind of the last two. I mean, we had guys in the middle there that were just briefly, Darrell Singletary and who's some others, boys, Kevin Denny and just some, Keith Whitley, of course. But I mean, it was going away. So we had been thinking about it a long time. But actually, the song itself, Larry Shell, the co-writer, told me the idea, and I had already picked out songs for a new album I was working on, and wasn't really not in songwriting mode. But when he told me the idea, I immediately knew what it was about, and I said, "Is it about killing country music?" He said, "Yeah." So we wrote it the next time we got together, and I honestly think we had it mostly written before lunch, but I think we wrote what we did and went and got something to eat and came back and tweaked a line or two and made a little tape of it, you know.
Be nice if they all came that easy, wouldn't it?
It would be,
Yeah.
but that's okay. I like to work on them.
Well, Larry, we'd be honored if you'd play Murder on Music Row for us.
All right, we're going to render it. 3, 4, 1, 2. Nobody saw him running from 16th Avenue. They never found a fingerprint or the weapon that was used. But someone killed country music, cut out its heart and soul. They got away with murder down on Music Row. The almighty dollar and the lust for worldwide fame slowly killed tradition,
And her name, Shania Twain.
got no surname. Oh, and they all say not guilty, but the evidence will show that murder was committed down on Music Row. For the steel guitars no longer cry, and you can't hear fiddles play, with drums and rock and roll guitars turned all up in your face. And old Hank wouldn't ever change on today's radio, since they committed murder down on Music Row. They thought no one would miss it once it was dead and gone. Why, they said no one would buy them old drinking and cheating song. Well, there ain't no justice in it, and the hardbacks are cold. You know, there's been an awful murder down on Music Row. For the steel guitars no longer cry, and you can't hear fiddles play, with drums and rock and roll guitars turned all up in your face. And Merle Haggard would never change on today's radio, since they committed murder down on Music Row. Why, they'd even tell the possum to pack up and go back home. There's been an awful murder down on Music Row. Yeah.
Thank you, Larry Cordle. The mighty chord.
If it does something to me emotionally, you know, I've had hair on me stand up, and you know, or I've actually been moved to tears by lines. I don't think maybe not necessarily something I don't think I'm that brilliant or anything, you know. Most of my songs, all my songs come from God anyway, but when it really does something to me, you know, or causes tears to jump in my eyes, I really feel like, oh boy, you better be getting the rest of this right.
Well, thank you for joining us on Songs at the Center. We enjoyed having you. We hope you'll come to Ohio sometime where you'll always find Songs at the Center. I'm Eric Gnezda, and we'll see you next time.
Major funding provided by The Ohio State University, James Cancer Hospital, and Solove Research Institute. No two people are exactly alike, and neither are their cancers. At the James, we believe there is no routine cancer. Learn more at cancer.osu.edu/cancer. Additional funding provided by the Academy of Country Music Lifting Lives Program, the Ohio Arts Council, and France & Associates. Learn more about Songs at the Center at songsatthecenter.tv.